The Zyrathian capital, Vralis Prime, shimmered under a sheet of gold-tinted atmosphere as millions gathered in the Grand Plaza. Towering spires framed the horizon, each engraved with the triumphs of the Empire, each proclaiming its supremacy over lesser species. Today, the Empire celebrated a new milestone, one they believed the entire galaxy should witness. At the center of the plaza stood a levitating obsidian platform surrounded by layered security shields. On it knelt a single figure. A human. Chains wrapped around his limbs like ornamental jewels, glowing faintly as if proud to restrain him. Captain Eric Hale's posture remained unnervingly calm. His ancient Terran armor was battered, cracked, and darkened by time, yet something about it looked dangerous beneath the damage, like the armor's scars hid deeper secrets. Crowds roared at him, some jeering, others laughing, many simply curious. Humanity had been extinct for 6,000 years, according to every Imperial archive. To them, Eric was a relic, an artifact dragged from forgotten ruins. A fossil, incapable of resisting. Eric did not raise his head. His breathing stayed slow and steady. He let the noise wash over him, studying the echoes. A wide plaza created natural sound pockets, useful for tracking troop distribution. He counted them without looking. 3 staggered formations behind him, 2 flanking the platform, and a larger cluster stationed on the upper balconies. Inside his mind, faint notifications pulsed. Echo protocol dormant. Signal weak. Awaiting trigger. Eric hid the slight tightening of his jaw. He had known awakening would eventually come. He had not expected it to begin in chains. A deep, resonant horn blared across the plaza. The crowd erupted once more as Emperor Vralkar emerged from the palace gates. The Zyrathian ruler towered nearly 3 meters tall, armored in plates forged from crystallized xylarite. The armor shifted in hypnotic patterns, flowing with every movement, as if alive. His presence alone could silence thousands. He stopped a meter from Eric and looked down with barely contained amusement. So this is the legendary human? Vralkar's voice reverberated like rolling thunder. A fragile creature born from a dying star, brought here in chains. He spread his arms, addressing his audience. You see, my people, we have ended a myth. The crowd roared approval. Eric lifted his gaze only slightly. His green eyes reflected a calm far too steady for someone in captivity. For a moment, Vralkar hesitated, not in fear, but confusion. Something in that stare bothered him. Raise him, the Emperor commanded. Magnetic clamps lifted Eric upright, forcing his posture. 2 soldiers stepped forward with plasma stimulators. Their instruments hummed as they pressed them against Eric's armor. White-blue energy arced across his body, lighting up the air with sharp crackles. Eric barely blinked. The soldiers exchanged a glance. They increased the power. The plasma lances surged, slamming against his chest. Eric exhaled once, steady and controlled. Vralkar smirked. Even your pain responses are primitive. Eric finally spoke, his voice quiet. You misunderstand what you're looking at. The Emperor raised an eyebrow. Enlighten me. You assume weakness, Eric said. But you're only measuring noise. The Emperor frowned, clearly irritated by the cryptic answer. He gestured sharply. Increase it. I want to see him break. The stimulators glowed brighter. A ripple of electricity crawled across Eric's armor, causing the cracked plates to shift slightly. Beneath the visible surface, nanites stirred, microscopic repairs waking for the first time in generations. Eric closed his eyes. Not in pain, in calculation. The stimulators used a repeating frequency, one he recognized. Old Zyrathian tech. Useful. Predictable. Inside his mind, the whisper returned. Terran signal detected. Low orbit. Origin dormant node. Awaiting command. Eric opened his eyes again. The Emperor paced around him, basking in his imagined superiority. Tell me, human fossil, were your ancestors truly as powerful as legends claim? Or were they foolish creatures who let their own star devour them? Eric answered nothing. Silence unsettled Vralkar more than defiance ever could. He grabbed Eric's chin with a clawed gauntlet and forced the human's face upward. "Look at your conqueror," he growled. Eric stared into his eyes with unsettling clarity. "You assume too much," Eric said softly. The Emperor shoved him back. "I will enjoy watching your kind erased a second time." Eric's chains rattled, glowing slightly brighter as faint pulses flowed along their surface. He felt echo warming beneath his skin. "Is that why you brought me here?" Eric asked. "To gloat over a corpse you think cannot fight back?" The Emperor chuckled. "You cannot even stand without my machines holding you up." Eric tilted his head. "If you truly believe that, you wouldn't be trembling." Vralkar froze. He hadn't trembled. Yet something inside him jolted, an instinctual reaction he didn't show physically, but Eric sensed it. Eric whispered, almost to himself, "The galaxy always repeats its mistakes." The Emperor raised his voice for the crowd. "Enough of this. The last of humanity dies today. Do you have any final words, Terran?" Eric slowly lifted his head. His posture straightened despite the restraints. The plaza fell strangely quiet, as if the entire world waited. His voice carried with startling clarity. "Final words?" he repeated. "Yes." A long pause. Then he spoke the sentence that would shatter every corner of the Empire. "You want war?" The air tightened. Eric's eyes glowed faintly as dormant neural systems surged awake. "We will give you war." The final word had barely left his mouth when the plaza trembled. Holographic screens flickered. The sky darkened not from clouds but from the sudden activation of orbital nodes long believed to be dead relics. Security officers shouted. Sensors malfunctioned. Soldiers raised weapons without knowing why. From somewhere deep within the city, a siren howled, a sound no one had heard before. Vralkar stared at Eric, confusion turning to fear. "What did you do?" he demanded. Eric's chains began to crackle with failing energy. "I didn't start this," Eric said quietly. "You did." Above them, something massive shifted in low orbit, a shadow stretching across the sky as an ancient Terran signature awakened for the first time in thousands of years. The Empire had no idea what they had just provoked. But Eric did. And he smiled. The sirens tore through the plaza like a blade through silence. Vibrating through metal walkways and echoing inside towering spires, they forced the gathered crowds into frantic motion. Soldiers collided with civilians as every screen in the capital flickered with cascading warnings. Eric Hale stood unmoving at the center of the chaos. His chains pulsed, their glow unstable. Lines of digital script flashed across the restraints, then the sigils cracked, sputtering into sparks. Vralkar, towering above the panic, shouted orders over the noise. "Lock down the city! Seal the platforms now!" No system obeyed. Defense grids flickered with static. Scanners rebooted again and again, unable to stabilize. Eric tilted his head as he watched the breakdown ripple outward. "Your systems are reacting to a signal they were never designed to handle," he said. The Emperor turned sharply. "What signal?" Eric didn't answer. He simply stared at the sky. Above them, the shadow intensified. Clouds warped around the massive silhouette as if space itself was bending. The object wasn't descending, it was forming. A dome of light rippled across the heavens, and a colossal outline emerged from within it. Metallic plates assembled like the growth of a living creature, snapping into place with thunderous force. The eternal resolve was awakening. Vralkar stepped back as its full form became visible. "That cannot be Terran. They've been dead for millennia." "That's what you believed," Eric replied. His chains cracked fully and fell away. Guards immediately raised their weapons. Eric held up one hand, and a soft pulse rolled outward. Their rifles powered down instantly. Confused shouts followed, but Eric didn't attack. He simply moved past them with calm precision. 2 soldiers tried to block his path. Eric touched one lightly on the wrist. His armor emitted a brief pulse, and the soldier staggered backward, unharmed but immobilized. "I told you," Eric said gently. "Move aside." Most obeyed instinctively. Behind him, the plaza screens restored themselves long enough to broadcast a new message, text in an unknown Terran script, glowing a deep cobalt blue. Vanguard Unit hail, authentication matched. Command access, granted? Vralkar stared, speechless. You control that thing? I don't control it, Eric said as he walked. It answers to a protocol older than your empire. Explosions rocked the eastern district as defense platforms attempted to fire on the dreadnought, yet every blast vanished against the ship's dimensional folds, swallowed silently. Eric stepped off the platform. The magnetic field parted for him. With each step across the plaza floor, the ground trembled. Stop him! Vralkar roared. But no one moved. Not out of loyalty to Eric, out of fear of him and the shadow above. The Emperor forced his way through the crowd, fury carved into his face. What are you? He demanded. A reminder, Eric said. The Emperor attempted to strike him. Eric caught his wrist mid-swing. With minimal effort, he redirected the Emperor's momentum and released him. Vralkar stumbled but didn't fall. Eric didn't even appear to have exerted force. A nearby officer shouted, My Emperor! Long-range sensors reporting multiple anomalies across the sector. Vralkar snapped. What anomalies? Star systems long classified as dead are activating. Energy surges across abandoned worm gates. We're detecting Terran signatures everywhere. Eric's eyes narrowed slightly. He didn't look surprised. Inside his mind, the AI pulsed with growing strength. Echo protocol rising. Synchronization, 43%. Awaiting command structure. Vanguard hail. The AI whispered directly into him. Fleets initiating self-assembly. Eric reached the plaza's edge. A swarm of Imperial hovercraft formed a blockade, weapons glowing. Their pilots looked tense, unsure if firing would matter. Eric stopped, observing the blockade with a faint tilt of the head. You're nervous, he said. Good. That means you'll hesitate. And hesitation keeps you alive. He raised both hands slightly. A soft wave of blue light radiated from him. Every hovercraft descended slowly, engines forced into stasis mode. They landed harmlessly in a controlled scatter. The crowd gasped. Eric continued forward without breaking stride. Above the city, the dreadnought opened its central core. Concentric rings of runic symbols rotated, sending beams of light across the sky. Each pulse seemed to connect with distant stars, as if guiding something toward Vralis Prime. Vralkar backed away, shaken. What does it want? It wants to finish its directive, Eric said. Humanity did not disappear. We evolved, left Guardians behind, and hid our strongest weapons where no empire would look. Until needed. Needed? The Emperor rasped. For what? Eric looked over his shoulder. For this. A crackling sound echoed across the plaza as a holographic feed activated on every surface. It showed multiple star systems, desolate, barren, forgotten by time. One by one, structures buried under dust awakened. Beams of light shot into orbit. Ancient fleets rose from the shadows of dead moons. Terran war arcs, dormant for thousands of years, began to move. Vralkar's voice cracked. How many? Enough, Eric said. He continued toward the docking tower that stretched skyward. Imperial guards scrambled into position but quickly froze when they saw their weapons flicker uselessly. Eric stepped into the lift. The doors hesitated as if confused, then slid open, granting him full access. He ascended at rapid speed, the city shrinking below him. The Emperor, watching helplessly from the plaza, clenched his fists. Fire the orbital cannons! Now! His generals hesitated. My Emperor, the cannons are refusing connection. Override them! We can't. Up in the tower, Eric walked onto an open platform that overlooked the city. The Eternal Resolve hovered directly before him, its hull glowing with ancient Terran geometry. The vessel's voice resonated inside his mind. Vanguard hail. Command link stabilized. Awaiting your directive. Eric stepped forward as a narrow light bridge extended from the dreadnought, connecting to the tower. He walked across it with steady confidence. Status? He asked internally. Galaxy-wide activation progressing. War arcs synchronizing. AI phalanxes operational. Primary networks online. A faint breeze brushed his face as he crossed into the ship. The moment he touched the dreadnought floor, the entire vessel hummed, acknowledging him. Vralkar's final shouted command reached him faintly from below. You cannot win! You are one man! Eric paused in the doorway and looked back at the vast city. One man, he echoed. And an entire legacy behind him. The dreadnought sealed shut. Inside, blue-lit corridors awakened. Holographic displays projected star maps as Terran fleets converged toward the Empire. Eric placed his hand on the central console. Echo fused with the ship in a surge of power. Open the channels, Eric ordered. A single sentence broadcast across the galaxy. Humanity returns only when provoked. You wanted war. Now face what you awakened. The dreadnought's engines ignited. The eternal resolve pierced the upper atmosphere like a silent blade cutting through dusk. Below, Vralis Prime trembled under the weight of the approaching Terran fleets. Ancient war arcs, each forged before the fall of Sol, streaked across the starfield in rigid formation. Their hulls glowed with soft indigo energy, forming a constellation of Terran symbols revived from slumber. Inside the dreadnought, Eric Hale stood before a panoramic display showing the Empire's vast defensive armada assembling in orbit. 40,000 Zyrathian warships formed a crescent barrier around their capital world. A shimmering tapestry of energy shields extended across the void, reinforced by pulsating cannon arrays. The Eternal Resolve scanned the blockade with a calm, steady hum. Enemy armament, extensive. Threat level manageable, the ship's AI reported. Eric observed the Imperial formation, noting its aggressive symmetry. They came prepared, he murmured. Or at least they think they did, the AI replied. Awaiting your discretion. Before issuing commands, Eric opened a communication channel. His gaze focused on the Emperor's flagship, a towering, obsidian vessel adorned with crimson banners. A projection shimmered to life, revealing Emperor Vralkar in his command chamber, visibly enraged but struggling to maintain composure. Human, Vralkar said, voice strained. Stand down. Your awakening threatens every system. This is madness. Eric held his expression steady. You paraded me as a trophy. You tortured me for spectacle. You fired first. Everything unfolding now is a consequence you authored. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. And you believe those relics behind you will save your kind's legacy? They already have, Eric said. The galaxy needed a reminder. Consider this the lesson. Vralkar cut communication and raised his arm to signal the fleet. Eric exhaled slowly. Here it begins, he whispered. The first wave of Zyrathian cruisers surged forward, unleashing concentrated barrages of plasma and kinetic fire. Brilliant streams cut across the void, crashing against the Eternal Resolve's dimensional barrier. Instead of impact, the strikes dissolved into spirals of light, dissipating into nothing. Inside the bridge, the shockwaves barely registered. Deflect without retaliation, Eric ordered. We're not here to slaughter the innocent or the unwilling. The dreadnought obeyed, drifting gracefully as if strolling through a storm. The next wave pressed harder, dreadnought-class Zyrathian vessels unleashing gravitational shock lances designed to tear apart battleships. The Eternal Resolve shifted its geometry, bending space-time around the impacts. The attacks vanished into a shimmering curtain. Yet Eric stood unshaken. Record everything, he said quietly. Recording. When the third barrage struck, Eric made his move. Disable their forward line. No casualties. The dreadnought responded instantly. 3 glowing orbs appeared along its hull. They pulsed once, then released ripples of compressed energy that raced outward. When the waves touched the Zyrathian ships, their engines flickered out. Their cannons powered down. The vessels drifted helplessly but intact. The front line collapsed without a single explosion. Inside the Imperial command chamber, panic erupted. How are they doing this? one officer cried. Vralkar slammed his fist into the console. Bring me the Planet Devourer! The bridge fell silent. Officers exchanged uneasy glances. My Emperor, that weapon is unstable. It was built for this exact purpose. He barked. Deploy it! Far behind the Imperial fleet, the darkness shifted. A massive biomechanical moon emerged, covered in spiraling tentacles of metal and pulsating red tissue. Its surface glowed with molten veins. The Planet Devourer, an ancient Zyrathian superweapon created through forbidden bioengineering, locked its cyclopean core onto Eric's ship. Eric watched the monstrous construct arrive. They brought the abomination, he muttered. Threat escalation detected, the AI confirmed. Eric closed his eyes for a brief moment. He remembered the last recorded Terran encounter with a Planet Devourer during the first expansion wars. It had cost billions of lives back then. Humanity vowed no empire would use such a weapon again. Summon the Celestial Arcs, Eric commanded. Space around the Eternal Resolve trembled. Light tore through the void as 3 titanic vessels emerged, each larger, older, and more powerful than the Resolve itself. Their hulls glittered like carved starlight, inscribed with ancient Terran ethos encapsulated in glowing runes. The battlefield froze. On Zyrathian channels, fear spread like wildfire. 3 arcs, impossible! We are facing the old gods. No weapon can match that. The Planet Devourer roared, unleashing a gravitational beam meant to tear moons apart. Eric reacted swiftly. Counterfield. Reinforce the grid. The celestial arcs aligned perfectly. A combined energy field, precise, calculated, and cold as mathematics, absorbed the attack and reflected it. The beam struck the Devourer's outer layer, triggering an uncontrolled feedback surge. The moon weapon spasmed violently, losing control over its internal core. Vralkar appeared again on the calm channel, fury radiating through the projection. You dare bring these relics against my empire? You forced this, Eric replied. This was never about conquest. It was about ending your cruelty. You presume moral authority? Vralkar spat. You are a corpse revived by forgotten machines. Eric's gaze hardened. And you are a tyrant who mistook restraint for weakness. The Emperor struck a control rune, sending the Devourer into a berserk state. Its tendrils extended, lashing toward the arcs like burning serpents. Its core flared dangerously bright. Eric stepped forward, placing his hand on the console. Open the tactical channel. Channel open. His voice echoed across the battlefield. All Zyrathian personnel, evacuate immediately. You are not my enemies. Your Emperor made his choice. You do not have to die with him. Dozens of Imperial ships powered down weapons and backed away. Others fled entirely. Vralkar watched them retreat and screamed. Cowards! You obey me! Eric cut to a secure channel. Vralkar! Stand down. That weapon will tear your world apart. The Emperor's eyes burned with pride that had rotted into madness. I will not kneel to a human! Eric exhaled. Then this ends now. He signaled the arcs. 3 lances of pure energy erupted, weaving into a single beam. It struck the Devourer's core. For a moment, the weapon froze in place, silent, motionless, before collapsing in on itself. A sphere of blue-white light expanded outward, then dissipated harmlessly, neutralized by the arc's containment fields. The battlefield fell silent. No more weapons fired. No more screams. Only the quiet hum of Terran vessels standing watch. Vralkar stared at the ruins of his ultimate weapon. This cannot be. Eric's voice dropped to a calm whisper. You asked for war? This is what war looks like. The Emperor stepped back as sparks rained around him. What now? Do you raise my empire? No, Eric said. Your empire raised itself. I only stopped its last atrocity. Moments later, the Imperial flagship's reactors shut down. Vralkar collapsed to his knees, not in surrender, but in realization. It's over, Eric said softly. The feed cut. the Terran fleets powered down. The arcs folded their energy fields. And across the galaxy, enslaved worlds felt chains fall away as Imperial control signals went dark. Eric stood before the panoramic display one last time. "Send the final message," he ordered. The AI projected it across every major star system. "Humans do not conquer. Humans respond. May the galaxy remember this." Eric walked to the observation deck. Vralis Prime's skyline glowed beneath him, no longer echoing with arrogance but with quiet uncertainty. He whispered, "Earth, the promise stands.